Hello, guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Vijeta, and as we know, we are going to discuss about the Canterbury Tales, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, the much celebrated Canterbury Tales, in fact. And as we stopped last time, here it seems. So now we will go on and talk about the clerk, his prologue, and his tale. So now what happens is the host asks the clerk to cheer up and tell a merry tale, and the clerk agrees to tell a tale by the Italian poet Petrarch. As we've already known that your Chaucer was a well-traveled man, and he was influenced by Petrarch and Boccaccio. So what happens is the clerk, he's going to tell a tale by Petrarch, and as we can see, the clerk is a sincere, devoted student at Oxford University who loves learning and is respected by all pilgrims. He's poor because he spends all his money on books, and he narrates the story of Griselda. Griselda is a hard-working peasant who marries into the aristocracy. Her husband tests her fortitude in several ways, including pretending to kill her children and divorcing her. Yes, that's quite an extreme thing. Anyways, he punishes her one final time by forcing her to prepare for his wedding to a new wife. She does all this dutifully. Her husband tells her that she has always been and will always be his wife, and they lived happily ever after. The true import of this tale is that man must learn to endure adversity with courage and, not courage and adversity. I think that's a typo. But with courage and strength, I will look it up, the correct quote, but it goes along these lines. Although in NET exam, they won't be too obvious with this question. Although please look it up. And yeah, I think that's certainly a typo, although I'm not sure. Now we come to the merchant's prologue and tale. Now, the merchant is a shrewd and intelligent man, and he's the member of a rich, rising middle class who knows how to strike a good bargain, obviously. The merchant reflects on the great difference between the patient Griselda of the clerk's tale and the horrible shrew he has been married for the past 2 months. The host asks him to tell a story of the evils of marriage, and he complies. Now the story begins. Against the advice of his friends, an old knight named January married May, a beautiful young woman. Notice the symbolism here. January is associated with cold weather and May is like the summer. She is less impressed by his enthusiastic sexual efforts and conspires to cheat on him with his squire Damien. When blind January takes May into his garden to copulate with her, this story is a little bit crude, I suppose. She tells him she wants to eat a pear, and he helps her up into the pear tree where she has sexual intercourse with Damien. Pluto, the king of fairies, restores January's sight at that moment, and May is caught in the act. She accuses him that he must still be blind. Like, she wants him to be still. She basically gaslights him. That's what it is. The host prays to God to keep him from marrying a wife like that merchant had described. So yeah, this is quite a crude tale. A satire on unequal marriages is found in the merchant's tale of January and May. Like, this is an important question. Net people ask this question. Now we come to the squire's prologue and tale. The host calls upon the squire to say something about his favorite subject, love, and the squire willingly complies. King Cambuscan of Mongol Empire is visited by a knight on his birthday, bearing gifts from the king of Arabia and India. Yeah, so we have a lot of variety here. He gives Cambuscan and his daughter, Canesi, a magic brass horse, a magic mirror, a magic ring that gives Canesi the ability to understand the language of birds, and a sword with the power to close any wound it creates. She rescues a dying female falcon that narrates how her consort abandoned her for the love of another. Quite an adventurous fantasy tale. The Squire's Tale is either unfinished by Chaucer or it is interrupted by the Franklin, who interjects that he wishes his own son were as eloquent as the Squire. The host expresses annoyance at the Franklin's interruption and he asks him to tell the next tale. The Squire is a vain, lusty young man and a candidate for knighthood. This is also an important question. People usually ask these kinds of questions. He can sing, write poetry, and ride a horse very well, and considers himself a ladies' man. Chaucer about Squire. Squire was as fresh as the month of May. He was like the May month itself, like the wife itself, full of life and full of rigor. Now we come to the Franklin's prologue and tale. The Franklin says that his tale is a familiar Breton lay, a folk ballet of ancient Brittany. This is also a very important question, the Breton lay question. I've seen this in a lot of PYQs. Franklin is a large and wealthy landowner who enjoys fine living and good companionship. Now his tale. The heroine awaits the return of her husband Arviragus, I suppose, who has gone to England to win honour in feasts of arms. She worries that the ship bringing her husband home will wreck itself on the coastal rocks, and she promises that Aurelius, a young man who fell in love with her, she will give her body to him if he clears the rocks from the coast. So Aurelius is another man and she kind of asks him to clear the rocks, and in lieu of which she will give herself to him. Now Aurelius hires a student learned in magic to create the illusion that the rocks have disappeared. So yeah, Aurelius is not very honest. Her husband Arviragus returns home and tells his wife that she must keep her promise to Aurelius. Yeah, that's quite twisted, I suppose. Aurelius is so impressed by Arviragus' honorable act that he generously absolves her of the promise, and the magician in turn generously absolves Aurelius of the money he owes. But at the end, everything is settled down, so, no harm done, I suppose. The physician's prologue and tale. Although we can debate the men in this story and how the wife was treated, but that's topic for another day. The physician's prologue and tale. Appius the judge lusts after Virginia, the beautiful daughter of Virginius. So, these are the characters in the physician's tale. Appius persuades a churl named Claudius to declare her his slave. Appius declares that Virginius must hand over his daughter to Claudius. Virginius tells his daughter that she must die rather than suffer dishonor, and she virtually consents to her father cutting her head off. Yeah, this is quite an extreme tale, going overboard for honor. Appius sentences Virginius to death, but the Roman people, aware of Appius's hijinks, throw him into prison, where he kills himself. The physician was heavily dependent upon astrology. Yeah, the physician was a big believer, it seems. About the physician, Chaucer tells us, "For gold in physique is cordial, therefore he loved gold in especial." I suppose the physician was quite fond of gold. Now we come to the pardoner's prologue and tale. Now the host is dismayed by the tragic injustice of the physician's tale and asks the pardoner to tell a messy tale. The other pilgrims contradict the host, demanding a moral tale after he eats and drinks. The pardoner tells the company how he cheats people out of their money, preaching that money is the root of all evils. You see how twisted this is, I suppose. His tale describes 3 righteous youth who go looking for death, thinking they can kill him. Now this is a tale that a lot of people must have heard about. An old man tells them that they will find death under a tree. Instead, they find 8 bushes of gold, which they plot to sneak into the town under the cover of darkness. The youngest one goes to town to fetch food and drinks, but brings back poison. Yeah, yeah, these people are in their own plans. He's hoping to have the gold to all to himself. That is why he brings the poison over. His companions kill him to enrich their own shares. They drink the poison and die under the tree. Now, after the pardoner completes his tale, he offers to sell the pilgrims pardons and singles out the host to come and kiss his relics. The host infuriates the partner by accusing him of fraud, but the knight persuades the two to kiss and bury their differences. So, yeah, amongst themselves also, although they are pilgrims, but they are fighting and bickering, I suppose. Now, the shipman's tale. Magdalen Rascal is the name of the ship on which the shipman was riding. This tale features a monk who tricks a merchant's wife into, sex with him by borrowing money from the merchant, then giving it to the wife so she can pay her own debts to her husband in exchange for sexual favors. Yeah, this tales is big on these things. When the monk sees the merchant, next he tells him that he returned the merchant's money to his wife. The wife realizes that she has been duped, but she boldly tells her husband to forgive her debt. She will repay it in bed. Yeah, this is the tale, quite a bold tale. Now we come to the prioress prologue and tale. The host praises Shipman's story and asks the prioress to tell the next tale. Prioress calls on Virgin Mary to guide her tale. In an Asian city, a Christian school is located at the edge of a Jewish ghetto. An angelic 7-year-old boy, a widow's son, attends the school. He is a devoted Christian and loves to sing Alma Redemptoris. Yeah, these are like gracious mother of the Redeemer kind of things. Singing the song on his way through the ghetto, some Jews hire a murderer and slit his throat and throw him into a latrine. The Jews refuse to tell the widow where her son is, but he miraculously begins to sing those Alma Redemptoris, so the Christian people recover his body. The magistrate orders the murdering Jews to be drawn apart by wild horses and then hanged. Yeah, quite a violent tale, quite a graphic tale, I suppose. She is called Madame Eglantine, who wears a brooch with an inscription Amor vincit omnia, which means love conquers all. The second nun is a secretary, again a very important question. Now the prologue and the tale of Chaucer. So now we finally come to the tale of the author itself. The author, after teasing Chaucer, the narrator, about his appearance, asks him to tell a tale. Yeah, now Chaucer is going to tell a tale, the self-insert himself. Chaucer says that he only knows one tale, then launches into a parody of bad poetry, the tale of Sir Topas. Sir Topas rides about looking for an elf queen to marry until he is confronted by a giant. The narrator's doggerel continues in this vein until the host can bear no more and interrupts him. So yeah, Chaucer is like, I don't want to tell any tales. Chaucer asks him why he can't tell his tale since it is the best he knows, and the host explains that his rhyme is not worth a turd. So yeah, quite a language. He encourages Chaucer to tell a prose tale, and it is the smallest tale in the Canterbury Tales. This is also a very important question, which is the smallest tale. The Tale of Meleby. Chaucer's second tale is the long moral and prose story of Meleby. Meleby's house is raided by his foe. They beat his wife, Prudence, and severely wound his daughter, Sophie, in her feet, hands, ears, nose, and mouth. Prudence advises him not to rashly pursue vengeance on his enemies. He follows her advice by putting his foe's punishment in her hands. Yeah, I suppose it's fair enough. She forgives them for the outrages done to her in a model of Christian forbearance and forgiveness. So it's kind of a moral tale. Now we come to the monk's prologue and tale. The host wishes that his own wife were as patient as Meleby and calls upon the monk to tell the next tale. First, he teases the monk, pointing out that the monk is clearly no poor cloister. Yeah, the monk is kind of well off, I suppose. The monk takes it all in stride and tells a series of tragic falls or fails, in which noble figures are brought low. Example: Lucifer, Adam, Samson, Hercules, Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Zenobia, Pedro of Castile, and down through the ages. Yeah, these big figures, he brings them down in his tales. Altogether, 17 noble falls were narrated by the monk. Chaucer satirizes the monk because monk spends too much time hunting and too little time on religious duties. So all these people in these tales are doing anything but their real job, I suppose. Now we come to the nun's priest tale and prologue. After 17 noble falls narrated by the monk, the night interrupts, and the host calls upon the nun's priest to deliver something more lively. Priest tells of Chanticleer, the rooster, again a very important question, who is carried off by a flattering fox who tricks him into closing his eyes and displaying his crowing abilities. Chanticleer turns the table on the fox by persuading him to open his mouth and brag to the barnyard about his feat, upon which Chanticleer falls out of Fox's mouth and escapes. The host praises the nun's priest's tale, adding that if nun's priests were not in holy orders, he would be as sexually potent as Chanticleer. It has its origin in French Roman de Renard theme, never trust a flatterer. Yeah, that's that. We have the second nun's tale and prologue. I think I will stop here because I think it's quite enough. And I hope you liked the lecture. If you like it, please give my video a like, subscribe. You can comment also, any corrections, anything. You can comment freely. And I will meet you all in the next video. Thank you so much for listening.